Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're unpacking the raw, pulse-pounding story of the 2026 racing season's most relentless competitor. You know, in horse racing, history is brutally selective. The cameras follow the trophy, the fans cheer the champ, and the runner-up, well, they usually fade into the background. But today, we're panning that camera back to look at a horse who completely redefined what it means to have an unbreakable will.
Think back to the 158th Belmont Stakes. History definitely remembers the winner, Golden Tempo. But man, that breathtaking finish leaves us asking if the runner-up was actually the greatest warrior on the track that day. Was Commandment robbed of his destiny? Or did he just author the most gut-wrenching, incredible second-place performance of our generation?
So, let's set the scene. We're starting right at the climax at Saratoga,
where the entire racing world had basically written a script that ignored a horse named Commandment. While the spectacular closer, Golden Tempo, took the headlines and rewrote the record books, it was Commandment who forced this savage, grinding final furlong war. He tested the very soul of both animals. Golden Tempo was supposed to just cruise to a coronation, right? Treat this blue-blooded colt like mere background scenery. But no way. Commandment made it a bone-crushing fight to the absolute limit.
To really grasp how he built up to that explosive moment, we have to flash back. We need to look beneath the hood at the elite genetic architecture that created him.
Look, Commandment wasn't some underdog by birth. Wathnan Racing dropped a staggering $500,000 at auction for him. $500,000. They weren't just buying a pretty horse. They were investing heavily in a meticulously engineered machine, a true championship blueprint starting right at the top of his family tree.
And what an engine that investment bought. You combine Into Mischief's raw power with Sippacan Harbor's primal refusal to let another horse pass. I mean, his sire, Into Mischief, is a literal genetic phenomenon, passing down this atomic-grade engine capable of sustaining blinding speed. But raw power is only half the equation. His mother, Sippacan Harbor, she had this terrifying ability to dig deeper than anyone else in the dying strides of a race, and she burned that exact trait directly into her son's DNA.
So you put that together, and you get the complete package. This genetic arsenal meant the instinct to duel, to systematically break a rival's spirit, was literally woven into his bones long before he ever saw starting gate. The big takeaway here? Commandment was genetically programmed to fight, and I mean fight hard. But as we all know, raw DNA has to be tested in the fire. And that brings us to a spectacular winter campaign down in the Sunshine State. Every single race leading up to the Triple Crown was less a comfortable wire-to-wire victory and more of a blue-collar street fight. From Gulfstream Park in February and March, all the way to those ultimate tests in May and June, this was the exact crucible that forged his iron reputation. As it was said at the time, caught in tight quarters, he completely refused to blink. Surrounded by charging rivals in these heart-stopping Florida photo finishes, he looked completely cooked, but instead of folding, he launched these relentless counterattacks. He proved he knew exactly how to look a rival dead in the eye at maximum effort, capturing crowns and breathless finishes that left the grandstands in total, stunned silence. So, armed with those victories, he heads into the first Saturday in May looking completely unstoppable.
He arrived at Churchill Downs looking like a genuine superstar, but the 15-second Kentucky Derby was about to teach him a merciless lesson. The gates fly open, and the dream literally unravels in a single heartbeat. He lunges awkwardly, totally misses the break, and it's just chaos. He gets swallowed up by a wall of horseflesh, forced to absorb punishing kickback, and caught in this brutal chain reaction squeeze. He crossed the wire a bitterly disappointed 7th. And just like that, the public emptied the bandwagon overnight. Churchill Downs had practically swallowed him whole.
But behind closed doors, his team was furious. Trainer Brad Cox and Wathnan Racing knew that Derby run was a fluke. It wasn't the real Commandment. So they engineered this ruthless, 3-step, high-stakes ambush. Step 1, bypass the Preakness to recover. Step 2, target the sharper mile-and-a-quarter Belmont up at Saratoga. And Step 3, put Hall of Famer John Velasquez in the irons. This wasn't just a pivot. It was a cold, methodical ambush designed to shock the industry. And that pivot, it perfectly set the stage for the ultimate redemption arc. The 158th Belmont Stakes was an absolute pressure cooker up at Saratoga. And man, it was a masterclass in surgical precision. A wave of speed horses went out and set an unsustainable pace, literally designed to fry the lungs of the field. But Velasquez, he was ice. While everyone else panicked, Commandment executed the blueprint flawlessly. He conserved fuel, saved ground along the rail, and traveled with smooth, rhythmic efficiency, just waiting for the exact right moment to capitalize.
He was a coiled spring of weaponized patience. Actually, let's call it predatory patience. While the heavy favorite Golden Tempo was buried in severe traffic a dozen lengths back, Commandment sat there completely unfazed. He just waited, watching those blistering fractions decimate the early pace setters, sitting on a full engine with the lead directly in his crosshairs.
Then, rounding the far turn, boom! Commandment explodes into the lead, leaving the Saratoga grandstand gasping for air. For one glorious, heart-stopping second, it felt like the redemption arc was locked in. But then, the incoming shadow. Golden Tempo comes rolling in from the center of the track like a literal freight train, uncoiling this devastating, ground-eating surge. What happened next was one of the most gut-wrenching stretch duels we've seen in recent memory. Driven to the absolute edge of his physical limit, Commandment didn't fold. He didn't panic. He refused to yield a single inch without a war. He matched the world's best closer stride for grueling stride, fighting with every last fiber of his being until the very final yard.
A length and a quarter. That's it. 1.25 lengths. He was finally, agonizingly worn down, losing the final jewel of the Triple Crown by that tiny margin. But think about it. In that bone-crushing stretch drive, he pushed the best closer in the world to the absolute limit. He forced Golden Tempo to produce the race of his life just to survive.
You know, a warrior's true honor is never measured by the cheap gold around his neck. It's measured by the size of the heart hammering inside his chest. Commandment didn't get the blanket of carnations, but he completely validated his team's unwavering belief. He established himself as this ferocious throwback to a golden age of iron-hearted competitors. He walked off that track with the unconditional reverence of every true horseman out there. Not as a defeated runner-up, but as the ultimate benchmark of competitive violence and grit for his entire generation. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this. Did Commandment's soul-bearing performance earn him a place among the legends, or will the history books eventually leave him behind? How do you measure true greatness? Is it just the trophies, or is it the fight? Drop your verdict in the comments right now. And hey, if you believe greatness is about the size of the heart, hit that subscribe button. Our next deep dive into racing's greatest untold stories is right around the corner. And trust me, you will not want to miss it.